Hey folks, John Oliver here, ready to dive into a topic that's both fascinating and a little freaky, the deep state. Now before you picture shadowy figures in trench coats, let's be clear, the deep state isn't some evil organization with a secret lair and a monorail. It's more like a shadowy idea, a belief that there's a hidden network within the government, operating behind the scenes, pulling the strings of power. Think of it like this, the government is like a puppet show, and the deep state is the hand up the puppet's butt making it dance. The deep state is a popular topic in conspiracy circles. You know, those folks who believe the earth is flat or that Elvis is still out there, rocking a mean pompadour. These theories often paint the deep state as a group of unelected officials, bureaucrats, or even intelligence agencies working to undermine democracy and control things from the shadows. They whisper in the ears of presidents, sabotage policies they don't like, and generally make life difficult for anyone who dares to question their authority. Sounds juicy, right? Like a real-life episode of House of Cards, but with less Kevin Spacey and more paranoia? So, is there any truth to these claims about a deep state in America? Well, it depends on who you ask. Some people will swear on a stack of classified documents that the deep state is real and that it's been pulling the strings in American politics for decades. They'll point to events like the Watergate scandal or the Iran-Contra affair as evidence of the deep state's meddling. Others will scoff at the idea, calling it a paranoid fantasy cooked up by conspiracy theorists with too much time on their hands. They'll argue that these so-called deep state actions are nothing more than examples of government incompetence, bureaucratic infighting, or just plain old bad decisions. Here's the thing, the US government is massive. It's a sprawling entity that touches nearly every aspect of American life. We're talking millions of employees, from park rangers to nuclear physicists, all dedicated to their specific roles. These individuals operate within a complex web of rules and regulations, designed to ensure consistency and fairness. This vast bureaucracy, while essential for running a country, can sometimes feel like a force unto itself, moving at its own pace. It can be slow to change and resistant to outside influence, often due to the sheer scale and complexity of its operations. This inertia can be frustrating for those looking to implement rapid changes or new policies. Some argue that this entrenched bureaucracy, with its layers of institutional knowledge and resistance to political whims, is the closest thing we have to a deep state. It's not a shadowy cabal, but rather a network of career officials who ensure continuity. Think about it, a new president comes in with a radical agenda, promising sweeping reforms and bold initiatives. They want to shake things up, drain the swamp, whatever. But the reality is more complicated. The bureaucracy, with its deep roots and intricate workings, can slow down or even derail those plans. This isn't necessarily out of malice or opposition, but often out of a commitment to established procedures and a cautious approach to change. These procedures are in place to prevent hasty decisions and ensure that changes are thoroughly vetted and considered. So, while it may seem like the bureaucracy is an immovable object, it's actually a safeguard, ensuring stability and continuity in governance. In the end, this intricate system, with all its flaws and strengths, is what keeps the wheels of government turning, albeit sometimes slowly. It's a balancing act between progress and preservation, between innovation and tradition. And that's the real story behind the so-called deep state. Section 5. Deep state versus elected officials. A power struggle? This potential for bureaucratic resistance can create tension between elected officials and career civil servants. Politicians, beholden to voters and driven by short-term goals, might see the bureaucracy as an obstacle to their agenda. They might view career officials, with their job security and long-term outlook, as a threat to their power. This tension can lead to accusations of a deep state working against the elected government, fueling distrust and paranoia on both sides. It's like a tug-of-war between those who want to steer the ship of state, and those who believe they know the best course, regardless of who's at the helm. Section 6. Global deep states. America isn't special. Now, before you think America's the only country with a supposed deep state problem, think again. The concept exists in various forms worldwide. In some countries, it's the military that's seen as the real power behind the throne. In others, it's powerful families or business elites who call the shots. The point is, the idea of a hidden hand controlling things is a universal fear, a reflection of our anxieties about power, corruption, and the unseen forces that shape our world. It's like that feeling you get when you're sure someone's watching you, even though you're home alone. It's unsettling, even if it's all in your head. Section 7. The Deep State on TV, Stranger Than Fiction. Of course, no discussion of the Deep State would be complete without mentioning its role in popular culture. From The X-Files to Homeland, the Deep State has been a staple of movies and TV shows for decades, providing endless fodder for thrilling plots and shadowy conspiracies. These fictional portrayals often blur the lines between reality and fantasy, feeding into our fascination with the unknown and our suspicion of those in power. They tap into our primal fear of the unseen, the idea that someone, somewhere, is always watching, always in control. Section 8. So, should we be worried? So, what's the verdict? This is a question that has been on the minds of many, especially in recent times. With the rise of conspiracy theories and the increasing distrust in governmental institutions, it's natural to wonder about the existence and influence of a so-called deep state. Is the deep state a real threat to democracy, or is it just a figment of our collective imagination? This debate has sparked countless discussions, from academic circles to everyday conversations. People are genuinely concerned about the integrity of their democratic institutions, and the potential for unseen forces to undermine them. The truth, as always, is probably somewhere in between. While it's easy to dismiss the idea of a deep state as mere paranoia, it's also important to recognize that power dynamics are rarely straightforward. There are always layers of influence and control that aren't immediately visible. It's unlikely that there's a single, all-powerful deep state controlling everything from the Oval Office to your local library. The idea of a monolithic entity pulling all the strings is more fiction than fact. However, this doesn't mean that there aren't powerful groups and individuals who have significant sway over political and economic decisions, but it's also naive to think that power is never exercised behind closed doors. That influence isn't wielded in subtle and unseen ways. History is replete with examples of backroom deals, covert operations, and influential networks that operate out of the public eye. These elements of power are very real and can have profound impacts on society. The real takeaway here is that power is complex. It's a web of relationships, interests, and agendas that often intersect in unexpected ways. Understanding this complexity is crucial for anyone who wants to engage meaningfully with the political process. It's not always easy to see, and it doesn't always operate in the open. The mechanisms of power can be opaque, and those who wield it often prefer to stay in the shadows. This makes it all the more important for citizens to remain vigilant and informed. The best defense against any potential deep state is an informed and engaged citizenry, one that values transparency and accountability. By staying informed, participating in civic activities, and demanding openness from their leaders, people can help ensure that power remains in check. One that's willing to hold its leaders accountable and demand transparency in government. In the end, the strength of a democracy lies in its people. When citizens are active, informed, and engaged, they can safeguard their institutions against any undue influence, ensuring that their government truly serves the public good. Section 9. In conclusion, it's complicated. So, the next time you hear someone talking about the deep state, take it with a grain of salt. The term deep state has been thrown around a lot in recent years, often used to describe a supposed hidden government within the government pulling the strings behind the scenes. But what does it really mean? And is there any truth to it? It's a concept that's both intriguing and slippery, a reflection of our anxieties about power and the unseen forces that shape our world. The idea of a deep state taps into our deepest fears about who really holds the reins of power. Is it elected officials? Or is there a shadowy group working behind the scenes? While a shadowy cabal controlling everything from the shadows is unlikely, it's important to remember that power is complex and doesn't always operate in the open. Governments and organizations often have layers of bureaucracy and influence that aren't immediately visible. This can create the illusion of a hidden hand guiding events, even when it's just the result of complicated systems and human nature. Stay informed, stay engaged, and keep those tinfoil hats handy, just in case. It's crucial to question the information we receive and consider the sources. In an age of misinformation and sensationalism, critical thinking is our best defense. And that's our show, folks. We've journeyed through the murky waters of conspiracy theories and the concept of the deep state, and hopefully, we've shed some light on this complex topic. Until next time, this is John Oliver, reminding you to stay vigilant, question everything, and never trust a puppet with a suspicious bulge in its back. Remember, the truth is out there, but sometimes it's hiding in plain sight.